Howdy, folks. I really want to tell you a story about the best tip I ever got while busking, otherwise known as street performing. I had left from Chattanooga to get back to my hometown. About a week beforehand, I was in Texas, missing the Southeast, wanting and waiting eagerly to get back to my desperate valley where I was raised. Dalton, Georgia. Be it broken down, mostly lifeless, and severely uneducated, it's the closest thing that I could call a home. When I got there, I was of course met with a very warm welcome from my mother. Less of a warm welcome from the rest of my family, but a welcome all the same. Whether I loved them, hated them, or felt completely indifferent, it was a nice feeling to finally be around people that I recognized and knew, as opposed to constantly being surrounded by strangers. After a few days of acclimating to being mostly indoors, hanging out with friends and family, reminiscing, playing video games, and drinking way too much eggnog, I hit the streets to play some music for the townsfolk. Busking in Dalton was just about as I remember. Most folks giving me weird looks, not knowing whether they should tip me $20 or tell me to go get a job. I had gotten a good bit better at both playing and entertaining since the last time I had been there. So on average, I made more money and made a lot more attention. But all the interactions were mostly the same as any other town. People mindlessly advising me to go to Nashville even though they've never been there and don't realize I've been there very, very many times. People telling me to play their barbecue that they'll inevitably forget about for free, as if a random dude's barbecue would give me enough exposure to live off of. And the obligatory people wondering why in the world I would be here. It seems like no matter how big or small of a town I'm in, people always wonder why I would be there, assuming that I should be in whatever town they think I could easily get rich and famous in. But as far as Dalton, Georgia goes, that thought actually makes sense. The fact that there isn't much of anything except for a few old churches, broken down carpet mills, and a handful of lower income areas that people assume are ghettos just because people with a darker skin tone stay there, really adds to the silence and ignorance. The romantic thought that everywhere else must be vastly different for better or worse is an extremely tantalizing thought for anybody that has roots in a town like this. The difference being, for most people that were raised here, it's not romantic or achievable enough for them to actually leave. Except for maybe hanging out in the tourist areas and surrounding hotspots. You know, the kinds of places where you never get to actually experience any authentic culture. By far, this isn't the smallest or most miserable town that I've been in, but it's the one where I can spot the cracks in people's happy-go-lucky lifestyles the easiest. You'd be hard-pressed to find anybody younger than 40 that's proud of being from or living in Dalton. In an odd way, I find a sense of joy about being from here, but that's mostly due to the fact that I actually left and don't plan on coming back to stay. Performing music on the street is something absolutely no one really does here, and people are often legitimately confused about what I'm doing. Being seen as a dirty but at the least entertaining anomaly is something that I embrace while I'm here. Explaining exactly what I do, how I go about traveling, is something I never really get tired of. The look of confusion and disgust only shines a light on the look of wonder and joy to somebody with a brighter disposition when telling them about freight trains, busking, sleeping outside, or flying cardboard signs. The best of interactions and engagements is definitely children. Coming up to my tip jar with quarters that their parents gave them, unsure about how to approach this strange, loud, and smelly man, but doing so with a kind of bravery that would warm anyone's soul. Children walking out of big lots ignoring their parents' wishes to stay away from the strange vagabond and running up to dance to a Christmas song that I've played way too many times to enjoy otherwise. Despite whether they tip me or not, that's when I really enjoy what I do the most. Children conquering their fear, dancing to a song that I must reiterate I hate. A newlywed couple dancing on a bridge to a song that is sad but played with a happy melody. A man recently divorced, lost in every sense of the term, feeling down and out, sitting across from me, authentically feeling every word that I'm howling. I do this for a living, and man, does even just a 5-spot make my day, but all of those experiences overwhelmingly outweigh any money anybody could give me. But the best tip I've ever received didn't come in the form of common currency. I was busking beside a Kohl's. I had made it out decent from a rush beforehand, and I was just rehearsing my originals and playing songs that I love to play to myself. I saw out of the corner of my eye this kid with thick rimmed glasses, probably about 10 or 12. Looks like the kind of kid that would classically get picked on in a 90s film. I had no idea how long he had been watching me, but he walked around listening for a good 10-15 minutes before he came up to me. With some of the most nervous energy I've ever seen anybody have, he slowly approached me in a manner that kind of made me stop playing. When I stopped, I could tell he became even more nervous, so I said, "Hey man, what's up?" Despite his nervousness, he attempted to make eye contact with me as to make sure I was paying attention, and he said, "I know this won't make any sense, but here you go," and tossed an old dried out walnut in my case. I picked it up and explained that I actually do understand and it means a lot. He said sorry, then I said please don't be. He started to wander off, but when I started playing again, he came closer and closer, eventually hanging around and bobbing his head to the music and all that. He really started to warm up and started talking to me about the shows he liked, how his home life was, and school. He said he didn't have too many friends, but overall he liked his life, and the friends that he did have were really good ones. Eventually his parents came out of a store about a block down and rapidly walked over and began to scold him for wandering off and talking to me. Although I really couldn't blame them too much for it, it made me feel really bad how poorly they thought of me. It made me feel even worse when he started to defend me and they only doubled down. He looked back as he left with his parents. I waved and winked at him, gave his parents a nod. They waved back with a fake smile on their faces as they started walking faster towards their car. Despite the unfortunate end of this interaction, that dried up, useless walnut was the best tip I had ever received. The absurdity, the simplicity, the mixture of awkwardness and sincerity, everything about it was just absolutely perfect to me. And that's about it. It might be ridiculous, but that's, to me, the best tip I've ever got. If you like what I do, Patreon is the best way to support me. It's a subscription service, and for the price of a cup of coffee a month, you could help me turn this, and the various other things I do, into a living. If you don't know, I'm also a musician, and I'll have a new album out very soon. It's already out on Patreon. A few select songs will be on Spotify, but you can buy the whole thing on Bandcamp, coming June 12th. I'll leave you with a song, Red Clay, Black Sheep. It's about where I'm from and how I was raised and how I feel about it now that I'm older. Love all y'all. Thank you so much.
Born in the mud, Georgia flesh and blood, the time built on the carpet industry. The factory shut down, felt like a ghost town. As a kid there weren't too much for me to see. I don't remember much, was a heathen off the cuff, took to roaming these streets to pass my time. Times would get real rough, a drink was not enough to help me stop the swelling in my mind. Most what I remember is people don't like the black sheep, praying for the day I'd be free. I remember that red clay falling on my face. That's why rock bottom feels like home to me. That's why rock bottom feels like home to me. For better or for worse, my roots have gone off course. I left this town and never said goodbye. But one day I came back, just steaming off the tracks, and I don't even really know why. Now that I'm older, the world's just gotten colder, and everyone's just trying to pass the time. No one cares about this time that's been left out. They've all stayed, left it all behind. Most what I remember is people don't like a black sheep, praying for the day that I'd be free. I remember that red clay falling on my face. That's why rock bottom feels like home to me. That's why rock bottom feels like home to me. I hate it, but it's the truth. Can't deny it, it's no use. the world would be the same if it disappeared. After being broken down from a carpet capital town, I know that there ain't nothing for me here. Most what I remember is people don't like a black sheep, praying for the day that I'd be free. I remember that red clay falling on my face. That's why rock bottom feels like home to me. That's why rock bottom feels like home to me.